Welcome to the World Builders Anvil, episode 217. Today's show, we're talking about the classic character archetypes, and specifically the Everyman. Don't know where to start building your fantasy world?
Do you need more? Does it make sense?
Forget any worries and become a crafter of imagination.
This is the place where we will prime your mind.
Now, it's time to heat up the forge.
Break out the mithril ingots and hammer.
Welcome to the World Builders Anvil. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram.
And I'm Michael Miller.
Let's sup from the mug of Java and build. All right, here we are today to talk about the Everyman. I'm Jeffrey W. Ingram, and I am the co-host of the World Builders Anvil podcast, as you probably just got in the intro.
And since we're talking about the Everyman, vanilla yours, I am Michael Miller.
Which is actually really spiced up for him. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
I'm so bland.
Here's the cool wing dinger here. Now, in this episode, there's one character I have in mind when I think of Everyman characters. My favorite.
Wow.
My favorite of all time.
Slow that down. What now?
My favorite Everyman character of all time.
Okay.
And your job is to try and predict it before we get through to the end.
Okay, my job.
Your job. You get bonus points if you do it.
So just do me this courtesy. Once we get to the point where you're about ready to talk about that character, give me one last heads up. Like, okay, this is your last chance.
Okay.
So I can think about it.
I'll do that, and I'll write it down here, the name of the character.
So I know you're not cheating.
So you know I'm not cheating.
I wouldn't expect you to cheat about it. Like that's fine. Yeah, I trust you just to tell me. But the thing is, like, this episode was actually kind of tough for me to think about because I sat there trying to think of, and I was like, oh, the Everman, this should be easy, and I could not think of a good example. So I'm very eager to see what you have as examples. I know the archetype. The archetype, is strong in my head, but examples were hard for me to come up with. And like what immediately comes to mind, of course, is any generic, non-fleshed out video game protagonist. Like, all of them,
I mean, you could definitely go there. The one I've chosen, we'll get this going. I'll throw a few out there. The problem with it, we'll get more into the problem with the archetype in a moment. This is, like I said, part 2 of a series we've done on classic character archetypes. The first one was on essentially doomsayers. That's really why we did it. But any kind of sleuth slayer, wizard type of character from fiction, there's a link to it in the show notes.
Prophesiers,
doomslayers, and soothslayers. Slayers.
They slay the sleuth.
We've just created a new archetype. That's awesome.
Where is the sooth? I shall slay it.
I shall slay the sooth.
That's tough to say.
And really, doing research for this, I found out it was actually, the concept actually comes back from a medieval morality play. That's actually how far back this character archetype is recognized. And they probably got it from the name of the morality play, which was called Everyman.
Really?
Yes. And I don't know, like blah, blah century. I don't know. Forsooth, I'm the Everyman, or something like that. It was probably like the starting line of it. But it was like, literally, it's like, what does every man have to do to, I think, get salvation? Because it was a morality play. I don't know the play. I don't think the text survived. I think they know of it. It's been referenced to. There's, I think, assumptions on what it's about. But I don't even think they have the original text to it. I think it got lost in time. But they somehow know about it.
So kind of like you and I. We're always getting lost in time.
We are lost in time. This is actually being recorded the day before Julius Caesar gets killed.
Which is convenient. So, like, Jeff and I actually put a couple bets down on it.
We put bets down on it.
We expect
to score big tomorrow. Yeah. If we don't get stabbed, we go to take our winnings in.
Well, I mean, if one of us gets stabbed, the other can just go back in time and, just say, hey, dodge left.
Change history.
Yeah, roll decks, move left, and we're all good. You know how it works.
Hey, watch out for that Brutus guy. I bet you $10 he'll stab you.
Well, I don't think he's going to stab me, but I mean, Caesar might want to pay attention.
Well, no, I'm saying the bookie, because the odds in that were probably a long shot at the time. So
All right. So we got here. What is the Everyman? And
Okay.
in a nutshell, the Everyman is a nothing special character. He's kind of a character that it could be anybody. It could be it could be everybody. It could be anyone. It could be you.
And that's the point of the character. And really, I think the strength of the character. This character is, I think, the most cheated on archetype of all time as well.
How do you mean cheated on?
It's just like a father, just like any other father who, well, was a special forces ninja for 72 years, and and they killed his dog.
Well,
they cheat on it. They cheat on it like that.
But see, I don't think that that's the Everyman. I think that
it's not. But I think they're trying to play off of the Everyman.
They absolutely are. But
to justify his succeeding, they cheat.
I want us to do another show on that, and it should be basically the empathetic expert.
And this one will be a lot better than anything else, a lot easier to pull them out because they had something special about them.
Right.
The problem with the Everyman is the reason they're forgettable is because you end up not thinking about them in that context if they survive, or it's from a boring movie.
Well, no, I mean, I would disagree in that there are plenty of movies, especially where you have a legit Everyman that haplessly gets lucky or finds his gumption and a little determination and makes his way through a harrowing tale. And I think that is one of the things that we gravitate towards. That
leads me to my first example for you to help get your juices warmed.
I'm dropping an example first. I'm thinking of Tom Cruise in the remake of War of the Worlds. He's just, your average blue-collar worker, and all of a sudden aliens invade and alien apocalypse is occurring, and he barely makes it through, but he does make it through. And he doesn't have any special combat skills. He's not, he's not special in any real way in that movie at all.
It's a legitimate framework.
Yes.
The one I'm thinking about, some people might say I'm cheating because of his job, but I say the job is so common, it doesn't really give you special advantage, and that's John McClane. He was a cop, but he was not some super ninja cop.
True. Well,
he was not some super ninja cop.
I'll give you that.
And the thing was, his movie really stuck out because you figured you had Rambo and you had Arnold Schwarzenegger tearing everything up. He's getting injured. He's bumbling his way through. Yeah. He has enough skill in the right areas, but really they're skills that hundreds of thousands of people have.
Yeah, I'll give you.
That's a blue collar, typical kind of job.
Yeah, at the time of that movie's release, definitely
the first one. He became more superhero, and as it went forward.
In the first one, well, actually, not even. If you think about 2 and 3 and 4,
Bruce Willis looks good beaten up. Yep.
5, I would say, is where it gets a bit ridiculous. And 5 was not very good. Number 6, well, actually, number 4 was definitely
6?
No. Number 4 was definitely over the top. And there was a couple of things that occurred in that movie that were so stupid, but at the same time,
which was the one that they started over with, the hackers, which was that was
number 4. That's the one I'm talking about. Which I really liked that movie. It's a fun watch. But
it was a fun watch, but it was silly.
Him jumping behind the wheel of the semi and him driving the semi successfully the way he did, and then him standing on the back of a jet, and then surviving that fall. Those 3 things, and also him launching the car. He's like, you just killed a helicopter with a car.
Yeah, let's be honest. Most people, myself included, if you put me in a semi-trailer and told me if I didn't drive it, it was going to blow up, I would be in big trouble.
I would imagine
the shifting system are really intricate on them, and I don't think that's what happened to be an automatic. I don't know if they do those or not.
No. I'm pretty sure that they are a very large multi-gear, more than your standard gear. I think it's 7. Yeah. I don't know that it's 18, but
I'm making it up.
I'm fairly confident it is.
In Garduel, it's 18.
There's some truck driver listening to us, you guys are idiots. I'm sure we can look. We could look this stuff up. My uncle was a truck driver. I never talked to him.
I had an uncle drunk driver too. So yes.
So yes, I would say definitely the first John McClane adventure would be absolutely. I would agree with you that he's an everyman. And he was also a breath of fresh air in the action movie genre because, like, you take a look at the heroic, like, you can even take a look at, you know, the very first Rambo, which was called First Blood. There's a part where he is like jumping off like a 40-foot cliff onto like a tree. And like he does it, and it's not a huge deal. I mean, he does get injured. It is harrowing. But then you go to John McClane jumping off the roof, and he's terrified to do it. He's absolutely terrified. He's scared to death that he's gonna die, and he doesn't want to do it. And the only reason he actually does it is because the roof explodes.
Yeah, and that would force you.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you know, the scenes of tragedies where people jump out of buildings to escape fires. It happens when there are fires in big buildings. And so he's my first one. And but yeah, no, I think it very much he's a good example too. I think of the character, but not my favorite, which is saying something. Because I really like the first I Heard. Now, these characters can be the protagonist, but they don't necessarily act as the protagonist. A true everyman character, though, is either the protagonist or he's like high-level supporting cast. He's not an underdeveloped character. And I do think you could probably pull a protagonist off as an everyman as well, too. I mean, you could argue Death Wish was an everyman.
Yeah, definitely. The first one.
Yeah.
The first, and let's be specific, the original, because speaking of Bruce Willis, they have a Bruce Willis remake that is about to, hit the theaters now, and it does not look like it upholds what the original Death Wish was about at all.
Okay.
So I won't draw too many conclusions until I see it, but based on what I've seen for the trailers and all the information.
But as for today,
yeah, definitely Charlie Bronson in the first Death Wish was absolutely an everyman. A more modern and totally different take and example I just thought of is Truman from The Truman Show.
Yes, I think that's another good example, and which could arguably be up there in one of my favorites. That's a story concept I love. It's taken from one of my favorite stories. They changed it a little bit, but
what's the story?
I always want to call a crack in time, but it's not that.
Oh wait, are you talking about the one where the guy?
The Philip Dick.
Yes, I know exactly what you're talking about. I have not read it, but I'm aware of it.
Yeah, and it was a whole different background and a reason why they were doing it, but they had a whole fake town set up with this guy living in it to try and get information, and a wonderful short story. I'll try and find it and put it in the show notes if I can remember which.
If you guys have not seen The Truman Show, it is such a good watch. The basic gist is that you have a man who, when he was born, he was the legal property of a television studio, and they have created a life on a massive sound stage where everything he does is recorded, and he is on television unbeknownst to him for his entire life. So everything around him is fake. Everybody in his world is in on the fact that it's not actually real. And
they're designed to elicit responses from him. So, I mean, there's, once again, are any of the emotions that you have with people real? And it's a great philosophical question to bring up. And I think the reason The Truman Show works, too, using that character, the everyman character in that point, is there's oftentimes you feel like the world is out to get you. It's like you have a series of bad events. You feel like it's all stacked against you. And in a way, it would almost be comforting to find out that it was all fake. Like, wait, you guys got me good.
Just because you are paranoid doesn't mean they're not out to get you.
That's true. That is
perfect
true,
paranoia is, after all, perfect awareness.
Who told you to say that? Okay. Now, I think the thing to keep in mind...
Okay.
I do need to step back here for a second.
Well, I was going to say, go back to Death Wish, yeah.
Well, actually, a little bit before Death Wish.
Okay.
You go back. You go back to Death Wish first, and then I will bring up my next point.
The basic bit on Death Wish is you have a father husband character who is an architect. While this is not every person's job, it's a reasonable not a big deal job. And it's been so long since I've watched the movie. I cannot remember if they get jumped on the street or if his wife and daughter are the victims of a home invasion. I want to say it was a home invasion.
I thought it was a home invasion, but it's been a really long time.
I want to say it's a home invasion. And one of the characters is killed and the other is physically and sexually assaulted. And he has to deal with this. Mm-hmm. And he takes matters into his own hands. And that is how the movie plays out. The original movie, the big point about the movie is the horrors of violence. The absolute horrible truth that people get hurt and sometimes justice does not come to those who deserve it. People get away with horrible crimes, and it is sad and scary and awful. And violence is a horrible thing. That is the point of the original Death Wish. The sequels got more and more ridiculous. They became these weird revenge tales of him fighting for the common man. It got ridiculous. The new remake of Death Wish looks like it's really glorifying violence, which is totally the opposite point of the original movie. So
yeah. And the thing I want to point out, and the reason why these stories are working with these everyman characters that we're talking about so well, is because the idea of everyman characters, it places you in the narrative. You can ground in a lot easier with an everyman character and identify with them next to, big crazy events. Which is also why I think the most commonplace I see everyman characters are in your old World War II movies.
Oh, see, I was going to go horror movies.
Well, I don't know. Those are teenager archetype.
Well, yes, but a lot of that they are literally everyman characters. Like everybody was a teenager. Everybody, they're all like pre any serious occupation. No, they're not experts at anything.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
That's fair. Actually, I think you might be more right than me. But the reason I go back to the old World War II movies...
I'm so glad that's on record. That just got recorded.
The reason I go back to the old World War II movies is that was in a time and place where soldiers were drafted. They were not... they did not... Some volunteered to go in, but most people who were in the service because they were drafted into the service. So you have guys who literally get 8 or 15 weeks of training, and they're getting rounds shot at them. Where... even in today's military, even when I was in, I had training up front, but then I was a professional soldier for 4 years. If something came up, I was a lot better trained than a draftee would ever be. I could use more sophisticated equipment. I'd have more sophisticated tactical knowledge. I would be a lot better of a soldier, even though I would still argue real soldiers and even special ops people, if it's done right, can be everyman characters. Where in most movies it's a cheat, where it's like, you have, superhuman destruction powers, if you were ever in special ops or, a ranger or whatever they decided that movie. But, where they would probably know how to do a lot of really dangerous things, real everyman characters are not bulletproof. And so... And where a lot of those old World War II movies were slightly propaganda, if not total propaganda.
I was going to say, gee, you think? Every John Wayne movie, every John Wayne movie ever made.
Exactly, which I love them, even though that's what they are. But the thing was, a lot of the characters in there were really genuine. They were probably taken from people someone actually met in World War II who inspired them.
Did you see Trumbo?
Trumbo? The name's not familiar.
Okay, Bryan Cranston plays Trumbo. I forget the man's full name. He was a writer in Hollywood, and he was blacklisted. I think he may have been a communist sympathizer, or people just thought he was. And he got...
Which is worse.
Which was worse in the McCarthy era, and he was blacklisted. And there was a point in time when John Wayne confronted him about something, about his patriotism and you know, about the war effort and whatever. And he's like, you know what? I served and I was stationed here. Where did you serve, John? Mm-hmm. And everybody was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're taking John Wayne, who was like the captain.
The icon who served in every theater,
right,
who fought every major battle.
Right, yeah. But he had never actually been in the military, whereas Trumbo had been. So he was like, you know, like, screw you, John. Like, you just play this shit on TV. Like, you're not a real soldier. You know, like, you've never done this shit. He's like, I have. And that flew over like a fart in church.
Which was true, though. Yes. No, that sounds like a good movie. But it was actually leading me to my next Everyman character I want to get to. And there are lots of examples here. And I can't remember his name right now. The photographer from Full Metal Jacket. Where Full Metal Jacket was full of... He was the main character. Joker.
Well, the Joker wasn't the photographer. He was the journalist. The photographer... He may have had...
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm just conflated into one.
Yes.
But it's Joker's who I'm thinking.
But I would agree with you that the photographer was also definitely an Everyman character.
Most of those characters were Everyman characters because it's the same scenario, right? Drafted in against, you know, their will. I mean, if anything, the only one you could argue is not an Everyman character is the drill sergeant. And maybe that's my bias of having a drill sergeant. Or, I'm sorry, he was a drill instructor. I'm glad he's not here right now because he can yell. He's awesome. He's my favorite yelling guy in movies.
R. Lee Remy.
Yeah. And a great source of characters to bring you in to really powerful and dangerous times and places, but allow the audience to connect because of their connections back to every life. But I think it makes it important that you get into the character background. That's why letters are very important in those kind of movies to help bring those connections in. You know, oh wait, his girlfriend just met this guy named Jody. What could possibly go wrong? You know, and you know, all those kinds of little details from the real world that leak into those kind of movies help build up the narrative of the Everyman character because it makes it more relatable. And for those of you that don't know, Jody is the name given to all people who sleep with soldiers' spouses or girlfriends.
Jody is the guy's name?
Yes, he's called Jody.
Okay, fair.
I guess it could be a girl too in a modern army, but so I guess the name kind of works either way. But yeah, Jody is the guy who is sleeping with your girlfriend or wife while you're out serving your country.
Going back to Full Metal Jacket for a minute, one of Adam Baldwin's very early performances, who we all know and love as Jane from Firefly, I love the line about him in there where he's like, you know, he's like, don't mind him. He'd be a perfectly nice person he'd be a perfectly good guy for the rest of his life if perfectly good guy if people could just heave grenades at him for the rest of his life.
Because he was the heavy gunner.
He was the heavy gunner. R. Lee Remy was not actually cast originally as the drill sergeant for that role. Another man was. And Remy was actually a consultant on the movie. And Kubrick was his drill sergeant cast actor was not bringing it the way he wanted it to, and he heard what Remy was doing, and he's like, can we just have you do it? And obviously that role is one of the most...
Did you actually hear how he got the role, though?
Go ahead.
Because I read this, and they're asking Stanley Kubrick about it, because they were talking about how he uses improvisation in movies, and he actually brought Remy in to talk to say that, you know, we think you're really good, but we're going to go with this guy. This is the guy for the role. And he stood up and lit into his ass.
Really?
He just went into one of his routines, and that is how he got the role.
Nice.
So he drill sergeanted him.
I did not know that. I had not heard that.
Because I read like something like about 25% of the words that he said were scripted.
Yeah, I all of his insults and the way he goes at it, like, choke yourself, not with your hand, stupid, with my hand. You know, like, you can't do anything correct by him. Like,
But think about how some of those things coming out would have really helped those soldiers react the way that they did. Like, what the?
Yeah, absolutely. There's another good one is go watch Heartbreak Ridge with Clint Eastwood. And in that one, there's like this whole bit where they have this mock battle, and Clint Eastwood starts actually training the guys who are normally getting jacked up, and he's like, look, my job is to make sure that these guys, when they go out into a combat situation, know how to keep themselves alive. And they were training them basically to lose. Like when they're doing this drill and they're like, oh, the ambush point's up here. He's like, the ambush point. And he goes, yeah, we're supposed to go up here about a quarter, about half a click, and then we get ambushed. So you know where you're going to get ambushed. Yes. Then we're not getting ambushed,
This makes it easy.
Yes, this makes it easy. So this one time, they totally jack up all the other guys, and they're like, wait, that's not how this is supposed to go. And he's like, I don't care how this is supposed to go. These men need to be taught how to become soldiers,
But war movies are really good too. And movies where you're trying to get to the emotional impact of big events, everyman characters need to get placed into those moments to help pull your audience in. And that's why I think war movies and horror, I guess, fair enough,
I have another
is chocked full of them.
I have another fantastic example, and this is my first official guess as to who your favorite is. Tom Hanks in Saving Private Ryan.
Nope.
No.
Another good choice.
But is it a good choice? But is it a good guess?
Another good guess. A great character. Great, especially put into the movie. Great job. But no.
Will you give me some kind of hint? Like, is it a war movie? Like, do I get at least the genre?
It is science fiction.
Science fiction. Wow, that doesn't. Okay, can you give me again? Can you give me a little? It's not Mal, is it?
Who?
Malcolm Reynolds.
No.
I was gonna say because I don't know that I would call Malcolm.
I wouldn't really call him.
Yeah.
You could maybe make an argument for him, but no. It is a movie, it is something quintessential to our growing up, like our teenage years.
Luke?
No,
but
that would be a good choice. That'd be a good choice.
I would think that'd be a pretty good choice.
A little older, or a little newer than that.
Oh,
I'm sorry, newer than that.
The Last Starfighter?
No, come on.
Well, that is a great choice. So you got to give me that's a perfect everyman character.
It's a perfect everyman character, but the problem is, it was one of those slap shop 80s movies. Yeah.
That movie is fantastic. That movie is fantastic, and I will not entertain any other perspective regarding The Last Starfighter. So
it's better than Waterworld if you wanted to go. I'll give you that.
It's more classic than Waterworld, but Waterworld had more going on. So you got to give me more to go on. That's too vague. Like, is it actually in the 80s, or was it released in the 70s?
Let me see. I think it was 80s. Let's see. I forget when the movie came out.
Okay, so we got science
fiction.
But
there were sequels.
It's a science fiction movie. It was an absolute classic. There were sequels to it.
It came out in 79.
I'm trying to remember when Star Trek was released, but I don't think it would be Star Trek.
Star Trek was the early 80s, I think.
I think the first one might have been a little earlier than that. The first one.
No, I remember the hair and the jackets. It was definitely the early 80s.
Star Trek the movie.
Okay.
79.
Now,
told you.
One of the other things you can do too is use Everyman for an empty character.
What do you mean by empty character?
An empty character, sort of, the audience can fill in the voids. You don't have a lot of details. You have enough details to where you understand it's an everyman kind of a character. Like you give the scenario and the clothes maybe, but they can kind of fill in the gaps about the family. They can kind of fill in the gaps about some of the background stuff to make themselves better connected to it. I think it's another great technique you can use with an everyman character is you don't need to give all the background because it's an everyman character. And if you need enough to let them realize it's an everyman character, but you want them to be able to fill in the past and say, well, my girlfriend broke up with me, so he probably had the same thing happen. Or she.
I think one of my all-time favorite characters could be Nada from They Live, which was played by Roddy Piper.
Well, anything played by Roddy Piper
Roddy
is gold. Loved him.
You got to give me more to go on.
Female character.
It's a female character.
No.
With a
lead.
With a female lead with sci-fi sequels in the 80s. My gosh, that's a lot of information, and it should be easy from that.
It should be. It should narrow it down to one. Because if I didn't say lead, Princess Leia is not an everyman character.
No, I wouldn't have guessed.
That's the only other like major female science fiction character I could think of.
Is she the lead in each of the sequels as well?
Not in all of them. The ones that she's in, most of them.
Oh my gosh, Aliens.
Alien.
I just watched, Ellen Ripley. I just watched Aliens the other day again for like the
Which I loved Aliens too. I loved the first two movies a lot.
Well, the first two movies are the best too. And the thing that's amazing, did you know that James Cameron, I actually read this today. I was reading this article about Terminator, and James Cameron wrote Aliens as something to keep him busy while he was waiting to do Terminator, either Terminator or Terminator 2. Like, he was literally just, this is something to do in my, off time. I'll write a sequel to Aliens.
So him and, because didn't Ridley Scott do that movie, I thought? Or were they both involved in the first original ones?
I'm not sure. I think Cameron was involved in the first one as well. I think he wrote it and Ridley Scott directed it, but
which could be true.
I can confirm that real quick if you'd like me to.
I don't care. I'll take your word for it. I'm a sucker.
The thing that's amazing about about Alien and then Aliens is that Alien is one of the best horror thriller sci-fi movies.
And monster movie.
Well, yes, and monster movie. And the sequel is one of the best sci-fi action movies. So you've got two movies in the same storyline that are distinctly not the same genre. They're both science fiction. They both have monsters in them. But one is clearly a thriller horror, and the other is clearly an action movie.
Yes. I think Alien, as a monster movie, which typically don't really frighten me very much, did a great job because they did a lot to, you would see segments and weird movements, but because of the lighting, the actual details of the alien, your imagination could keep feeding into. The mouth made it worse. It worked for me, obviously.
Dan O'Bannon and Roland Shusett wrote the first movie, and Ridley Scott directed.
Okay.
And do you know what the first movie is about?
All I really remember of the first movie was they were trapped on a planet and they went out and someone got jumped or something like that.
I am actually referring to the subtext of the movie.
The subtext?
Yes.
Don't do drugs.
No. The subtext...
Right, no, it was too early for that.
The subtext of the movie, there, like a lot had to do with rape, actually. Like they... Oh,
and that's where the violation and the whole mouth mechanic sort of came out of... Okay.
Exactly. Well, no. Not so much as that, but the face huggers.
Yeah.
Like, it's forcing something into you to grow. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. Like they designed it to look like like an attacking vagina.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the subtexts of the original movie.
Yes, and when you say it, it completely makes sense. Okay.
James Cameron wrote the second one with David Geyer, and actually, it looks like there's 4 more credits there.
And now I actually, my notes here, I do have another good one. The narrator from Fight Club. During the day, he was an everyman.
I would say
he was schizophrenic. you don't realize it until the end that maybe he's crazy.
His personality. Don't give away a lot on Fight Club, because if somebody hasn't seen it,
that's like 20 years old.
I don't
30
care.
years old.
Fight Club is one of those movies that you have to walk into blind. And if there's even one listener who has not seen that movie, go watch Fight Club. It's one of the best movies. It's so good. I had a friend of mine who I tried to convince, I got my brother and him to watch it, and it got to the point where it was getting late and he had to leave, and he wasn't into it. It wasn't grabbing him, and he left just before the hook. And I'm like, dude, you cannot leave now. I'm like, it's coming, and he left. And my brother and I finished the movie, and of course I'd seen it before. My brother was like, wow, that was cool. I talked to my buddy the next day, and I'm like, dude, I cannot believe you left when you left because you missed the hook. And he's like, dude, I'm never going to watch it. I don't care. Just tell me what happened. And I was like, this is the hook. And he's like, wow, that is really cool. He's like, all right, I'll watch it. So he watched the rest of it.
It's one of those things where...
And it became one of his favorite movies.
Exactly. It's like, it's one of those movies where when you watch the movie, it's not I didn't think it was bad, but you're kind of like, there's nothing special, definitely. And I can see where people might be bored with it. I liked it. I thought the dialogue was good and snappy. But when you hit the hook,
everything changes.
Everything changes, and it becomes a mind-bending movie.
And
Jeffrey obviously
I love movies that do that, where they create a hook and then it redefines everything that you watched. So you can watch it again knowing that thing and being like, well, what happened here? And then you're like, wait a minute, I got to go watch it again because all of this stuff was there the whole time, and now that I know it, I get to see it differently. The Usual Suspects is another great example of a movie that does that. There are sequences in that movie that seem one way, and then when you know what actually occurs and you watch it the second time through, you're like, oh, there's a totally different layer going on here.
Okay, now the last two kind of variations I kind of want to cover is the supporting character, and
the supporting. This is the supporting everyman.
The supporting the everyman character supporting the savant. Savant characters almost always have attached to them. When I say a savant character, think Hercule Poirot. Think Sherlock Holmes, especially. Their other half is meant to be an everyman character, because that's the only way you can. It's through the questions of that character that you can hope to understand the brilliance, of Hercule Poirot or of Sherlock Holmes, is because you have this dumb person next to them going, what?
Yeah,
let me explain to you.
They're a good comparison. Like, you get an idea, of just how amazing that person is.
Yeah.
Like, something that's kind of funny is, you watch professional football, and you look at all those guys on the field, and they don't look that big, and they don't look... they look fast, but they don't look that fast. And that's because everybody on the field is that
really
big
fast.
and is really fast. So I had a teacher who, at his school, they had a kid who became a professional football player, and he then visited the old high school years later after he'd gone pro. And just for kicks, they ran him through all of the school's athletic records. And he destroyed every one of them. Now, you're comparing records set by, high school athletes versus a professional athlete. So you expect a professional athlete to do better. But it
shows the growth.
But he's doing things that are not in his area of expertise. Hurdles, long jump, javelin. They had him doing all the track and field stuff, and he crushed everything. And I got a friend of mine who actually ran into one of the New England Patriots star. It was either... mind you, this is going back not quite 10 years, but close. So it's not whoever's there. It's not one of the... he might still be a player. I don't know. But he was either a quarterback or he was a wide receiver. I think he was a wide receiver, because the reason I mention this is because those two positions are physically small positions on the field. The men that play those two positions don't tend to be super large by comparison. And this guy was still an enormous man who was in unbelievable shape. My friend was I couldn't stop staring at him because you could see every muscle on his body through his shirt. The guy was so cut. And he's and this is one of the smaller guys on the field. Like, this is not one of, the guys on the defensive line. The guys on the defensive line are gigantic. So when you have the everyman, like Jeff or myself, and if you were to put us on the defensive line, you would realize just how massive these men are. You would realize just how fast and powerful they are, because you'd see Jeff and I get stomped by comparison.
Yes, right. Oh, yeah, most definitely. And, it's like you hear all the time, too. It's like, oh, he's really short for a quarterback. He's 6 foot.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah, he's real small. He only weighs 210. Everybody else is like 315.
That's right. Oh, he's on the small side for a defensive end. He weighs 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. Which might or might not be true. I'm not that familiar with football, but I do know defensive ends are gigantic.
Yeah.
I do play Madden. I do watch football, so yeah.
That's enough.
It's like
that's enough.
It's enough
for the sake of this conversation. That's enough.
That's my massive research. As I played Madden a couple months ago.
I'll tell you what, I used to play Madden like crazy, but I'm talking back in the Genesis days, like literally the very first John Madden football. I remember the day it came in the mail. I had gotten it in the mail, and we played.
I remember hundreds of hours playing Tecmo Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, a lot of Tecmo Bowl.
The classic.
10-yard fight.
Bobo Jackson.
10-yard fight was another big one on the original Nintendo. I used to play the heck out of that one.
Yeah, but okay, so a little bit back to here. So the last one too, and you see this in ensemble movies. A lot of times in the ensemble, and this could go for any kind. This could be like a movie of high fashion people. You'll have someone average who's the friend. The average Joe
The Devil Wears
in
Prada.
an ensemble of yeah, exactly. In any ensemble, one of the characters will almost typically be an average Joe, especially if the story is about like high elevation stuff. Yeah. Usually used for comic relief or to help press the point of how normal people aren't that different. It depends on the way they want to tell the story.
Yeah, the one thing I would say, like with The Devil Wears Prada, I would say that. Oh my gosh, I'm blanking on her name. I just had it a second ago. Help me. Princess Diaries, Les Mis. She just got an Oscar for Les Mis.
You asked me a name, that's your job.
Oh my gosh. Anne Hathaway. Anne Hathaway is the everyman as the lead character, but only in personality and professional experience, because she's one of the prettiest women alive. So as that movie progresses and they clean her up and better her look and whatever, so it's like, okay. But as far as
that's a typical trope that comes out, and especially ones that have to do with fashion.
As far as her personality and her knowledge of the profession goes, though, she is absolutely a, she's the character you're meant to empathize with, or not. Empathize, I guess, is the word I'm looking for.
Okay, so now for some fun flavors. So some things to keep in mind as you're using everyman characters. Really, if you want to have fun with them in a story, you really want to create a character people can sympathize with, make them have a really bad story. Just everything just keeps slapping them in the face, going wrong over. It's like nothing they can do works. And, they need a win at the end.
Mm-hmm. Take a look at Dante from Clerks.
Mm-hmm. But outside of that, that's a really good example right there. It's a really bad story, but at the end they get a win. Totally average. And this is not true because no one's really totally average. It's a way to make a creepy everyman character is just there's nothing special. You can't find anything special.
I have the epitome everyman character to this is the last example. It should be the last example.
The last example of the episode.
Yeah. It's not, we're not done. We got a couple more things to talk about, but it should be the epitome last example. And that is, I can't remember his character name, but Luke Wilson in Idiocracy.
I don't think I saw that one.
Oh my God, Jeff. You have to see Idiocracy. He's literally chosen for this cryo-freezing program because he is average in every single way.
Okay.
That is why he is chosen. And just go watch Idiocracy. Everybody go watch Idiocracy, first of all. It's one of those really clever, funny movies. Don't get caught up in the fact that there's also a lot of really lowbrow humor in it. There's also a lot of very intelligent thought in that movie.
Very good. Sort of like Zoolander.
Yes.
Yes. The first one.
The first one, yeah.
Just normal. Don't overthink it. Don't try and hide secret ninja powers. You know, just think up a character with traits. Some are going to be a little bit good. You know, some might even be pretty good. You know, some might even be exceptional, but they'll be balanced out. You know, overall, will they be maybe kind of lousy here?
Hidden ninja powers.
They're just kind of normal.
Hidden ninja powers
like
are the secret expert, and I think the secret expert is going to be our next character.
The secret expert?
The secret expert, yeah. That's the character that, like, you don't realize that they're totally insane at a given thing, and then the whole story unfolds because they're totally insane at a given thing.
Yes, that's right. Every John, no, not him. Who was that jerk? I can't remember his name, so it doesn't matter. Martial arts guy, Seagal.
Seagal, yeah.
Most of his movies, he was that guy.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just a small town cop whose daughter was hurt. Oh, did I mention I happened to used to be a CIA operative that took down the Soviet Union by myself?
Yeah.
Oh,
did you not know I'm a 27th level Aikido master, and I've been training Japanese warlords for 14 generations. I'm actually 200 years old, and I can break your arms with a thought. Surprise!
Surprise! That's what you call criminals who aren't good at casing.
I have
is the alternate name.
I have a certain set of skills I've acquired over a long career. Skills that make me a nightmare for men like you.
See, I think it's secret expert / criminals who suck at casing out joints.
See John Wick here.
All right. So now we're going to move on to the world building task of the day, which will blow everyone away this time.
Create an everyman character for your world.
Wow, that was kind of lame.
Well, look, I wasn't the one. I
of?
wasn't the one who thought it up. I mean, I'm reading.
You said it.
I got a cue card here, so.
Okay. All right. And for the real world task is, look through your characters that you have created, because these are patterns, and people's brains work through patterns. You've created these characters before. And just look through your characters and say, this is that character. Go to Facebook, go look up the group Undercroft, join, share your everyman character with us.
My novel is an everyman story. And I hadn't actually really thought about that until just now. It's totally that he is absolutely an everyman.
See, you struggle to find these characters. They're right there.
I know. I had such a hard time coming up with examples like, duh, the book you're writing.
Well, it's funny because I went back to my book and I'm like, yeah, I don't have any of those in my main cast of characters. It's like they're all exceptional in a way or another.
Do you have everyman as supporting characters?
No.
Really?
No. There's a trio of people that are important, and they're all exceptional in their own given way.
In other news, go to www.garduel.com/Amazon. That will help us out, and go do all your Amazon shopping through that link. It doesn't change anything about your shopping experience, but it will help the show, and we would appreciate that greatly, because
it will redirect you straight to the Amazon page.
Yep,
it will put a cookie that will give us a kickback for anything that you buy.
Yeah, so that would be great, guys. And obviously, if you want to get in touch with Jeff and I directly, join the closed Facebook group at
garduel.com/Undercroft or facebook.com/groups/Undercroft.
Yeah, if you just look up Undercroft on Facebook, you'll find us. The group is up over 100 people at this point, which is really cool.
Yep.
We've got some really nice new members that have been really active lately. There's been a lot of chatter on there lately, which I'm really enjoying. Jeff has been making it a point to put up new stuff on a near daily basis, which has been a lot of fun. And we got a few people that are constantly putting up content links for ideas and curiosities and research. So it's just a fun time. So come join us, join the fun, and
join the fun.
A couple of our recent episodes and a couple of episodes coming up have actually been the direct result of conversations on the Facebook page. So
either inspired by or directly like, hey guys, you said you're going to do it. You got to do it.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And so if you want to give us ideas that are like, oh, you know what? I'm toiling with this one thing in my world or my book or story or game or whatever you're working on, and you would love us to explore it. We'll do extensive internet research and then talk about it.
Yes. And then I'll give the notes to Michael and he'll read off of the cue card.
And well, I'll ignore half the notes he gives me though. So thanks for listening, guys.
Thank you so much for listening to the World Builders Anvil.
We would love it if you would share the World Builders Anvil with 2 of your friends.
And so would they.
If they are unfamiliar with podcasts, then you get to introduce them to the wonderful world of podcasting.
Take them to Stitcher or iTunes, or best of all, just send them to our website, www.garduel.com.
That's GARDUL.com.
Now strike while the mithril's hot.